This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And in this episode, Jonathan's back with the Call of Duty franchise, this time taking a look at the weapons from COD 4 Modern Warfare Remastered.
I'm going to be overusing the word iconic, I think, in this video. The iconic Barrett M82A1. The claimed distance of over 800 meters, that does not look like 800 meters plus in that scope to me.
If you want to see more of Jonathan's take on Call of Duty, make sure to check out our back catalogue with them all. You can find a link to the playlist in the description of this video. And if there are any other games, guns, or mechanics that you guys want to see Jonathan break down, let us know in the comment section. Right, let's take a look at the guns of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare.
This is a remake, of course, or a remaster, so we have the same pump-action shotgun as the original game. I'm not actually sure why they went with the Winchester Model 1200, necessarily. No reason not to. Games typically default to the Remington 870, the Mossberg 500, so to have the Winchester was a bit of a different choice. It's well done. The fact that you can see through the ejection port and see the cartridge lifter and the cartridges being inserted, it's all very well done, but kind of unremarkable. The pump action is a pump action, and the Modern Warfare pump action is still the Modern Warfare pump action, just in glorious HD. All right, now credit to Irregular Dave for spotting this before I spotted this. I have to give you the shout out, Dave. 50 rounds in this translucent plastic magazine, which is otherwise really nicely modeled. That might be, I don't want to offend any other developers, but that might be the best P90 magazine I've seen. It's got a functioning spring and follower and all of that. However, the rounds are all already fired because they've modeled fired rounds rather than making the primer flush. Yep, we're being picky, but it is there. It's a good P90, what can I say? The texture on the polymer is really good. That's something that's often overlooked. And then how you light that is also really important to stop it looking metal, basically. And we can see the contrast between it's not really a carry handle, but the sight mount, where it's got sort of edge-worn metal. It looks worn in the right places. And then where that meets that polymer receiver it's really good. What can I say? I think it's especially good considering this is not scratch built. They are working with, presumably, existing assets to at least some extent. Overall, it's good. You've got it really does give you, I've been fortunate enough to fire a P90. It's super controllable, and you get the sense of being able to keep all of your shots on target, even if in reality I probably couldn't. But you get that sense from this version quite nicely. So close quarter combat weapon par excellence, if I can sound very silly in using terrible English French. Got the G36. This one is an ex-UK police example. It's semi-automatic only, but it's suitably tricked out for roughly this era, or at least when the original Modern Warfare came out. It is the G36C compact. Anyway, main reason for actually getting hold of one is the reload in this is interesting. Now, the G36 magazine, well, is modular, and you can get an AR-15 style one with a magazine capped where my finger is. That's not super common, and this is the traditional version, so is this, with a paddle release, like that. Now, the paddle's modeled on the gun in game. It's either fudged and he's not operating the magazine capture tool, or he's using his index finger for whatever reason. So he's going from the trigger to the paddle, pushing up. It's not visible from this side, and then replacing the magazine like that. But I don't see the catch move. I think it's probably not, and they're just kind of glossing over it. But it's excusable because from the side we see the gun. You can't see it really anyway. M16A4, correctly modeled visually as an M16A4, but it is firing on automatic. Cannot remember if it did in the original game or not, but yeah, it should be 3-round burst, and that really quirky 3-round burst system where if you only fire one, your next burst is only 2, or if you fire a burst of 2, your next burst is 1 round. Much complained about by various soldiers and people like me. Now, something that I think has carried over from the original game is that weirdly tall rear sight, and probably the aperture's wrong, as the rear sight apertures on virtually all the guns in the game are not right, but I think that's a deliberate design choice, and probably so is this very tall rear sight. Now, why do I care about that? Well, if you were to drop this in the field, those sight protectors either side of the sight are not protecting it. And it's not like the Garand where you can crank the sight up and away from its protectors. This would just be there permanently. Right, now we're in multiplayer, the gun is working in 3-round burst. Now the way mouse and keyboard or controller or whatever works, and I guess just because it would be a pain in the backside, if they modeled the real 3-round burst function, it is 3 rounds every time you pull the trigger. You're not going to be able to let off the trigger and stop it at 1 or 2 rounds out of the burst, which for the sanity of the player, I think is a good choice.
Enemy transport sighted entering the target area. It's now or never. Take the shot. Target is down. Nice shot, Lieutenant. Shut that onto us. Take out that helicopter. You'll buy us some time. Let's go. They'll be searching for us.
I'm going to be overusing the word iconic, I think, in this video. The iconic Barrett M82A1 anti-materiel rifle, used, of course, in Modern Warfare to blow what's-his-face's arm off. There's your first problem. Well, you can't blow someone's arm off with a rifle. Well, maybe a 20mm rifle. The claimed distance of over 800 meters, that does not look like 800 meters plus in that scope to me. Even if you've got a 20 power scope, everything should look a lot smaller than that. Any long range shooters in the comments, please feel free to chime in. I've only ever fired beyond 1,000 yards once, and that was with a cheaty rifle with a guided trigger. The rifle itself is, everyone knows the Barrett, of course. This one is basically identical to, whoops, wrong side, our one behind there. Only difference is this has a strip of Picatinny rail screwed to the sight mount. Ours has the old-fashioned Weaver rail. Later variants do have a continuous strip of Picatinny rail across the top of the receiver, but for the old school M82A1, which this pretty much is, it's well done. Quick pause just to say, taking around a 50 BMG in the back, even if you're wearing ballistic plate or whatever, not a good time. You're not going to get blown down the street, but depending what the armor is, you might, maybe, no, you probably are dead. It's almost certainly going to go through whatever you're wearing, and the back face deformation is going to be significant. So even if it didn't penetrate somehow, it would absolutely mangle you. So that NPC there who took a hit full to the back, really, a weapon like this in any kind of vaguely purporting to be a realistic game should be a one-hit incapacitation, even if it's not a one-hit kill. And then offset that by making it hard to aim or something. Wow, that was very rapid. Now, if you go mooching around YouTube, you'll find clips of, shall we say, some absolute units firing this thing rapidly from the shoulder. Not all of them are massive. Jerry Michalak, absolute legend, rapid fires these things from the shoulder based on technique and a minimum level of strength, of course, upper body strength, and hits targets with them, but he's doing it at very, very close range. That's some Michalak level trigger control there. Almost any other scenario, I would be raising an eyebrow at that. This thing is surprisingly capable at closer ranges, shall we say, but it's not its purpose. It's not what it's trained to be used as, and it isn't, as far as I know, operationally used that way. But hey, this is essentially an interactive action movie, so. Another iconic military weapon, and an iconic COD weapon as well, the M40. So as far as I know, the M40 is still in use. So this is the US Marine Corps modified, depending on era. This is the A3, correct, 2007-ish. Their upgraded version of the quite venerable now Remington 700. It's still correctly depicted reloading from the top, not from a detachable magazine. I think the current variant, the A5, has moved to the pretty ubiquitous now detachable magazine. So you do most of your loading using the box magazine. But here we are feeding individual rounds in from the top of the action, which is how the A3 did operate. But then it was broadly correct in the original game, so I'd be surprised if anything changed since then. I'm not familiar enough with the correct scope for the A3. We don't have one, unfortunately, to know whether the scope reticle is correct. It looks like a pretty standard mil dot type reticle, which of course in the game doesn't really mean anything. You can try to use the hash marks to aim off or aim over, hold over, but it's going to be radically different than it would be on the real rifle. Something I did notice that's new on this and a couple of other models, the animation, the reloading animation, checks the chamber, does a press check. You don't commonly see that done with sniper rifles, but having once used a long-range rifle where the bolt did not pick up the round from the magazine like it's supposed to, it might be very, very rare that it doesn't happen, but I can sort of see why people who use these things for real might want to perform a check, but that is quite a modern trend in shooting techniques.
Weapons free. Bridge secure. Hold your fire. Gas, stay in the berg till we secure the deck. Over.
MP5 SD. I should have saved my use of the word iconic for this, really. As a real gun and in the Call of Duty games. I've managed to put together for this session from bits the configuration that we see in the game, which is the MP5 SD A3. So it's the retractable buttstock. That means I've also added on to what was originally the older style of trigger group on this gun, the more modern style of slick-sided, as it were, MP5 trigger pack, and it's the standard safe semi-auto. Something you'll notice on the COD MP5 is that it appears to sit between the two settings, which wouldn't be a good idea because you wouldn't quite know which one it was actually pointing at, as it were. So when you pull the trigger, whether you're going to get automatic or single shot. Now that's probably because somewhere in the design process this was going to be an MP5 Navy trigger group, which has a 3-round burst setting between those two. We've got a nice view of, well, this is empty, but rounds in the magazine, and they look really nice. They're positioned correctly, they're nicely modeled, both of which were not true in former games, and I think probably also true of the original unremastered version of this game.
Target neutralized. Tango down.
And disappointingly, we do not get the HK slap. I have to point out that there is now a music video of the HK slap. You can find it if you look for it. It's very niche, but highly amusing. So the standard reload on this is change the magazine, operate the charging handle, now, or the cocking handle, if you will. That does work, but the problem has always been, and this is why it's in the HK manual, might not be in your drill manual, depending on which army you served with, but because of the spring pressure and the round sticking proud of the feed lips, if you do that, you might not get the magazine on, and if you do, you might have trouble chambering the first round. Hence, you are supposed to lock it open in the slot, change your magazine, and then either push the charging handle out of the way, or, per the manual, slap it.
Tango down. Report. All clear. Roger that.
Another upgrade for this version of the MP5 SD, which is of course the suppressed version, and I think the sound effect does kind of get that across. It's not whisper quiet, but it's pretty damn quiet. Something else I noticed is we have a definite two-tone effect between the polymer lower, which is inevitably a bit of a greyish looking colour, versus the flat but slightly shiny matte black of the coating on the receiver, and we see that in the game. I remember the original gun being basically just all black.
Stand by. On my go.
Thanks for watching, guys. Those were the guns, again, of Modern Warfare. Remastered this time. We really appreciate you watching these videos. We are a museum, so if you'd like to support us, you can go to our website and find out how to do that, whether that's visiting or dropping us a bit of money. We also have quite a few social media outlets, and we have our own YouTube channel fairly heavily featuring me, so if I haven't bored you to death, please do come and join us over there as well. Either way, we'll see you again next time.